Okay, here we go. Rewriting Ripley. Now, this is rewriting. Well, it says rewriting Ripley pod. I believe that's podcast. But anyway, yeah, podcast. I I could be wrong, but I just about swear. See that joined December 2020. That's pretty recent. I could just about swear. So this is 21, 21, 21. I mean, it all seems to be quite new, and everybody talking about it. Basically, they're saying it. It's new. But I swear I've seen that RR logo and the rewriting Ripley name before. I just about swear that I've seen it probably several years ago. Not on Twitter. I think just an article that I found. So I occasionally over the years I look for just writing related articles, writing guides and shit. And I feel like I saw this rewriting Ripley crap on some website or other talking about, and maybe their website, I don't know, talking about like strong female characters, and of course, it's just basic stuff like the Bechdel test and crap like that, but also, probably some other woke stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that before we get started because I feel like I've actually seen these people before. Like I said, it seems like they're new, but I could just about swear that I've seen them years ago. So this is their thing. Let's see. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. Who cares? I don't know. All right. So this is their Twitter, and there's all kinds of bullshit here. Another rant about killing Ray Fisher. That's bullshit. EVS does not want to kill Ray Fisher. It used to, you could joke about things. I mean, um, um, God, I've forgotten his name now. The comedian dude. Who the fuck? The atheist comedian guy from way back. He's dead. Um, anyway, I can't believe I am seriously blanking on his name, but I am. You know who I'm talking about, though. He said you can make jokes about anything. He said you can joke. I can't joke about rape, but of course you can. He was very big into joking about anything, and he was a leftist. Leftists used to be in favor of humor. Of course, I guess that was when they didn't have so much control over everything, and now that they've gained control, they don't want anybody joking, about anything. They don't want anyone undermining their power because the left used humor to undermine, to undermine the right, and now they don't want the right undermining them with humor. So humor now bad. Humor bad because now you're using our weapons against us. Anyway, so yeah, I was just nobody's seriously talking about killing Ray Fisher or anybody else. It's just a joke, people. EVS is pretty funny. Anyway, I just brags about owning Michael Jackson Neverland Ranch VHS. The little boys watched before. I disavow. MJ did nothing wrong. I'm with Razor Fist on that one. I don't buy that bullshit about him. It's really easy to buy, but but I don't. I really don't believe it. Anyway, that's something for another time. All right. Oh dear God. I don't want to read it. 71 minutes. But nobody else is. On the one hand, you can say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't read it because you're just giving airtime and visibility to these assholes." Blah blah blah. Look, I get that, but the point is, nobody else is doing it. Like, there are plenty of people making videos talking about how these people, they've attacked the Fandominists and whoever the fuck else, blah 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 blah. But nobody's actually going in depth and reading the fucking article and explaining, all of the lies, exposing all the bullshit involved in it. So, it's probably going to take an hour or longer, maybe several hours. I don't know how long this is going to be. This is going to be a test of endurance for everybody, for me, for those watching, for for anybody. Um, no, don't want to bring up that. Okay, so let's dive in, people. In plain sight, how white supremacy, misogyny, and hate targeted the Star Wars sequel trilogy and won. Considering what they're actually referring to, like people being against the Star Wars sequel trilogy because it sucks, I'm glad that it won. I'm glad that, quote unquote hate won with regard to this, because, you're wrong. It's not white supremacy. It's not misogyny. It's not hate. But it is people criticizing the Star Wars sequel trilogy because the Star Wars sequel trilogy was garbage. It was absolute garbage from beginning to end. We all should have known when we heard the news that Disney had bought Star Wars. We all should have known that, okay, Star Wars is dead. It's fucking doomed. Disney is going to kill it. We're going to get a lot more Star Wars, but the quality is going to go straight to shit. We should have known. We should have fucking known. And I'm sure some of us did. I don't know. I think personally I didn't have much in the way of thoughts about it one way or the other to start with. I was kind of neutral. I was like, I don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. I should have known better. Anyway, all right. Content warning. This article contains information about white supremacist groups. Maybe, but doubtful. Racist hate, also doubtful. Misogyny, doubtful. Anti-Semitism, doubtful. That's way overused as well. And sexual assault. I don't even know what the hell that would be about, but probably not either. Including quotes and descriptions about rape, racial slurs, and violence against women. I'm betting all of those are jokes taken out of context, because what else would they be? I mean, come on. Please be advised, if you see an asterisk next to links in the article, they will be directed to an alt-right. Very, very unlikely. Alt-right is also a term that's way overused. Associated YouTube channel, a white supremacist website or blog, or a male supremacist website or blog. Okay, a quick note. Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way right now. Okay, let's tackle each one of these real quick. Alt-right. Okay, what is wrong with them using the term alt-right? What's wrong with them using the term alt-right is Okay, I was a leftist until 2016, when I was red-pilled. People who moved from the left to the right, like myself, knew that we weren't establishment right. Like, we didn't like the Republican establishment, the right-wing establishment. We weren't part of their group. We weren't with them on a whole lot of issues. We were with them on some, but against them on others. So we knew that we didn't fit in with the establishment on the right. And so many of us, including myself, considered calling ourselves the alternative right, or the new right, or whatever. A lot of people did that. And then you have some people who managed to get associated with it particularly strongly, like Richard Spencer, who is he's not, the ironic thing is he's not right-wing. He's actually not. If you actually bother to learn about the policies that he's in favor of, he's a fucking socialist. He's a left-winger. He's racist, but he's a leftist. But people like him managed to get associated with the term alt-right, and they poisoned that term. Anyway, white supremacist, again, that's usually just completely wrong whenever they apply it to somebody, but gonna have to have a lot of water for this one. But the term supremacy needs to be questioned here, or really whenever it's used, for white supremacists, male supremacists. It's like, if you're a white supremacist, like if you actually believe in racial supremacy, then you believe that your race is fundamentally better than others, you know, and not just better than like one of the others, better than all the others. That's how supremacy goes. Um, so for you to be white supremacist, like that term will be applied to people who are like, we need to control the border and stop, people from the third world who happen to be, black, brown, whatever, from coming to America, and they're said to be white supremacists. And it's like, but why do they want the border controlled? Is it just because they don't like uh, different colored people, showing up? No, it's because they're concerned about all of this influx of migrants who are taking their jobs. And it's like, if you're concerned that another group is out competing you for jobs, then you're not a supremacist. You don't think that you're inherently superior to them, because if you did, you'd be like, oh, well, we're inherently superior. We're always going to win. We're always going to get all the jobs. We're going to be the first pick because we're so awesome. But that's not what they think. So when they want the border controlled, it's like, it's not white supremacy, people. Male supremacists, I don't hear that term as much, probably because it's just kind of stupid. I mean, does anyone believe that men are superior uh, at getting pregnant or giving birth to children? Does anybody believe that? It's like, there are things that women do really well, and there are things that men do really well. As much as people want to believe that we should be like, I believe in us being legally treated equally, equal protection under the law and whatnot. But the idea that, oh, we're exactly the same, we're totally interchangeable, that's bullshit. You know, and it actually usually falls on the side of women being treated better, than men, because, male disposability is a thing, and as Stefan Molyneux always used to point out, pardon me, he always used to point out that sperm is plentiful, eggs are rare. You know, a tribe, a group, whatever, that loses most of its women, but still has a whole lot of men, that's not going to survive. That a handful of women is not going to be enough to repopulate. But a tribe that loses almost all of its men, but still has a few left and has plenty of women left, they can repopulate. That's an unpleasant reality for men, is that we are disposable. We are seen, throughout history, we have been seen as much more disposable than women. It's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant thought that you're less valuable. Women and children first. That's always how it goes. Always how it has gone. And there's a reason for that. There's a very practical fucking reason for it. Okay, yeah. I don't want to get too sidetracked because we're barely started this fucking thing. But I just want to go ahead and tackle that shit right now so that we don't have to tackle it again later. Okay, these have been included for educational purposes only. Please click at your own discretion. Blah, blah, blah. Note, highlights of this article, additional insights are available as a podcast. Yeah, we're not listening to that. Now, this is interesting because this is, part one. That's apparently what we're seeing now, I guess. I don't know. The end, or I don't know. What the fuck is this? Is this... Okay, so is this like the article is the whole thing, but part two of the podcast is only coming on the 25th, I guess? It's currently the 22nd. I don't know. Anyway, it's very cute. All right. Since December 2017, pop culture news has been overcrowded, that's a matter of opinion, with the same narrative. Rian, whatever you want to call him, Johnson's Star Wars Episode 7. No, Episode 8, sorry. I didn't like Episode 7 either. A lot of people did. A lot of people were like, oh, it's not bad. It's like, no, I thought it was crap. It was just a retelling of Episode 4, except badly. Anyway, I remember, no. We're not going to get sidetracked on J.J. Abrams. Let's just keep on with this. We'll be here forever. The Last Jedi has divided audiences. Well, it did. I mean, I personally believe that most people who knew anything about Star Wars, cared anything about Star Wars, didn't like it because it's clearly just wrong. I mean, and it's objectively a bad movie, by the way. It's just it's objectively bad. It's a bad movie, and it's a really bad Star Wars movie. Despite a 90% approval rating from critics, okay, first of all, who gives a shit what the critics say? Seriously, I mean, have you anytime that you get like a disparity, is like it tends to be like, oh, the critics really like this movie. What do the fans think? The fans really don't like it. I'm betting the fans are right. And the inverse is also true. Oh, the critics hate this one. Okay, what do the fans think? Oh, they love it. Well, it's probably a good film then. And also when you we've seen plenty of. I mean, there's you look at Clownfish TV or various other channels, you'll see tons of videos, from the last few years that have highlighted the fact that it appears that the like Rotten Tomatoes and wherever are now manipulating the fucking audience score. Like they're throwing away, like they get too many bad reviews of something and then they throw it away. They say no, and also whenever anybody talks about it, they're always lying. They're always lying about how, oh well, what they were doing was people were review bombing it. They were writing bad reviews before it came out, and it's like no, that's a lie. What was happening was people were being asked a question by the website, do you want to see this movie? And they were saying, no, I don't want to see it. And they were being accused of, oh, you're review bomb. Nope, that's an honest opinion. They don't want to see the fucking movie. Anyway, from and an A cinema score. We can't stop talking about how The Last Jedi is a polarizing film and has allegedly alienated fans en masse and sent Disney's multi-billion-dollar juggernaut in an unsatisfactory direction. That's true. That is absolutely true. As a lifelong Star Wars fan, I can tell you, yes, it was garbage. Although I was alienated already because The Force Awakens was terrible. Some people like Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, he apparently was totally on board with The Force Awakens, but of course he believes that the prequel trilogy was just excellent. He believes it was awesome. He's wrong. I mean, it's not terrible, especially not now that we see how bad can get with a Star Wars film with all the shit Disney's bumped out. But he's totally wrong if he's trying to make like the prequels were anything even remotely close to as good as the originals, because they're not. They're not terrible. I don't hate them. I can enjoy the prequels for what they are, but they're nothing like the original trilogy. It was very clear to me and many other people that I talked to when Episode 1 came out. We knew something was wrong. There was a sense that, man, this was really disappointing. It's very clear that the magic is gone. It's not like it was terrible. It's just that special, indefinable something is just not there. Anyway, creatives involved with Star Wars projects have even commented on the hate against the film. Again, why do we have to act like hating a film that was objectively bad? I mean, even if it wasn't, hating a film, it's like, that's your right. You have every right to dislike a film, strongly dislike it, even hate it. As a matter of fact, if you really passionately hate it, that just means that you are very passionate about it and you didn't like it. The real danger territory for a franchise is when people become apathetic. Is when people they don't care, one way or the other. They don't give a shit. That's when you know that something's dead. So the fact that people still hate Disney Star Wars, that's actually in a way a good sign. It means that people still care about Star Wars, and there's still a chance, if you make good Star Wars again, that the fans will come back. That the franchise will survive. That it's not dead yet. But But if they keep doing what they're doing, they're gonna kill it for sure. Um, I'm already personally moving into the I don't really care anymore territory. Um, okay. Blah, blah, blah. For example, Ron Howard, director of Solo, and but he wasn't the director. He was the replacement director because it was somebody else's movie, and he brought in to finish it, wasn't he? Director Solo, a Star Wars story, took to Twitter to respond to comments blaming dislike of The Last Jedi on Solo's underwhelming box office performance. Wait a minute. To respond to comments blaming dislike of The Last Jedi on... Oh, okay. Sorry. That just seemed backwards for a second. I was like, wait a minute, what? Shortly after the film's release in 2018. It's true. It's true. The fact that people did not like, that The Last Jedi was not nearly as appealing as people wanted it to be, that undoubtedly hurt Solo. Not that Solo is a good film either. It's a bunch of retconny bullshit, and generally speaking, unless you, I don't know, there's probably some way to do it well, but it's really threading the needle to try to replace classic, to be like, oh, we're gonna have new actors play the same classic characters, like that's really dangerous territory to tread into. And when you try to do that with Han Solo, it'd be like, oh, we're going to have a different actor go back and play him as a young guy, blah, blah, blah. Not to mention, like I said, retconny bullshit. It's like, you shouldn't do that, man. You shouldn't do that. But anyway, actor Anthony Daniels, best known for his... I noticed it doesn't say what he said, and I didn't pay attention at the time, so whatever. Best known for his role as C-3PO in Star Wars franchise, noted in his memoir, I Am C-3PO, that after encountering the hate towards The Last Jedi on YouTube, he was genuinely sad that fans felt their loyalty had been slighted. Well, they did feel that way, I mean, at least he cares, whereas Rian Johnson is just, a dickhead about it and says, "Oh, fuck you," I think it's funny that I that I ruined your shit. And in the lead up to the release of the final film in the Skywalker saga, I mean, the final film made it the Palpatine saga. Star Wars Episode X, just folded space from X. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Director J.J. Abrams acknowledged the animosity towards the franchise's 8th installment by suggesting that fans didn't want to be told that what they love about Star Wars doesn't matter. I'm not even 100% sure what the hell he means by that, but I'm sure it's at least partially true. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens director then went on to release a film that, according to Time magazine, feels as if Abrams read every critical tweet in Rian Johnson's mentions in the last 2 years and answered each one scene by scene. I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, many people, even people who absolutely hated The Last Jedi, many of them would agree that The Rise of Skywalker was even worse. And I don't think it's at all because, J.J. Abrams was trying to please the fans. I don't think that's what happened. I think what happened was, as much as he may not have done a particularly good job with the first of the 3 films, of the 3 Disney trilogy films, he did kind of try to set something up, and then what he was trying to set up was completely destroyed by Rian Johnson, and JJ was like, okay, well, he completely trashed everything I was going to do with The Last Jedi. How the fuck am I going to finish this off? So he had to come up with something, and so it became, a convoluted, extremely poor adaptation of Dark Empire, kind of, which, frankly, is what a lot of the Disney crap is. It's like they decanonized the expanded universe of Star Wars, and then they stole shit from it. They stole Kylo Ren's name. They stole his kind of sort of stole his identity, his backstory and whatnot. You know, and then, like I said, they stole Dark Empire with with the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, it's just the whole thing was it's just garbage. However, even though the Rise of Skywalker addressed fan concerns, not really. You're saying that, but that's not really what happened. Skywalker Saga ended with a whimper. Yes, it did. It obtained the lowest critic score of any Star Wars franchise film on record at 51%, received a lukewarm reception from the general audience with a cinema score of B+. Yeah, again, who gives a shit what the critics say? Nobody cares. But yes, the audience liked it even less than because, it's... And it's not because people are getting tired of Star Wars, it's because this isn't Star Wars. Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars. That's why people don't like it. After its release, Disney and Lucasfilm seemingly turned away from the sequel trilogy to focus on new opportunities on Disney's recently launched streaming service, Disney+. To the majority of people who decide to spend 2 hours invested in the galaxy far, far away, the Star Wars sequel trilogy films are likely fun popcorn flicks that added little to the saga overall. They're fun if you turn your brain off and just smile like, ooh, explosion, But if you actually pay attention, it's like they're very badly put together. They're bad. Like I said, they're bad. They're really bad Star Wars films, but they're bad films. Period. They're just not well made. In the end, the sequel trilogy is an ode to the past. No, it's not. A chance to recapture the energy of 1977. It was a chance, I suppose, but it was totally pissed away. Reclaim the heroes of a time that the world is quickly passing by. The Western society is on the decline. It's like this represents a society that is it's crumbling, and nobody tells the kind of stories that we used to tell. Too busy wanting to deconstruct them and all this other bullshit. Anyway, more of the failing of The Rise of Skywalker to provide a satisfying conclusion to the Skywalker saga for fans and casual viewers alike will likely make the sequel trilogy the least consequential addition to the franchise. Well, of course it is. It's the most garbage contribution. And I hope that at some point Disney is bought out or sells Star Wars to somebody or something, and somebody gets a hold of it who maybe actually understands Star Wars, who understands what is and is not Star Wars, and fires people like Kathleen Kennedy if they're still working for Lucasfilm at that point. And and it's just, I mean, there's so much that you could do. Like if I had tens of billions of dollars or whatever, and I could just afford to go to Disney and just be like, hey, I will pay you any amount you want, just whatever you want. I'll buy Star Wars off you. And they said yes. I could make it successful. I would recanonize the EU and start making probably TV shows rather than movies out of the adventures, not of the main characters, but sort of the other, like the X-Wing series of books. You could make a fucking TV show based on that would be really cool. Feature Rogue Squadron and Wraith Squadron going up against Asani Isard and Warlord Zinj. It would be very cool. You could do so much with it. It's just, there's so much cool shit in Star Wars, especially the expanded universe, and they're not doing anything with it. They just said, nah, that's not real. That's legends. Throw it away, and then they steal little bits and pieces from it to stitch together to make something god awful. And it's like, like I don't know. It's just ridiculous. While there is value in nostalgia and honoring the past, the reality of this particular situation carries with it something much more sinister that is easy for most people to miss. Um, you can honor the past and be nostalgic to a certain extent, like I just said, with what I would do, but still do something different. I mean, admittedly, those books have been written, but nobody's told the live action version of that story, and it could be great. The Last Jedi forged an ambitious path forward in a time when governments around the world were regressing into fear and hatred. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I guess they're talking about, Orange Man bad, which is just stupid. Uh, you know, all the positive shit that Trump did for the economy, and it's like, oh, I hate his tweets. Then don't read his tweets. Shut the fuck up. It's just ignore what the man says and enjoy the good that he was doing for the economy. And people couldn't do that. They were anyway spurred on by the growth of progressive uh, spurred on by the growth of progressive politics and rise in minority populations. Um, I'd say around the world, but I assume they're talking about the United States here. Progressive politics is actually not really very well received or liked. It First of all, progressive is a really old term. The progressives are they're from either the very early 1900s or the very late 1800s. Can't remember which. So it's very old. It's not like it's something new. Progressivism is better, you know, is more accurately referred to by some people as regressivism because it's bullshit. The kind of crap they want just doesn't work. And for progressive substitute woke, and it's like it's very loud. It's all over the place, but is it? Do people like it? No, people don't fucking like this woke crap. Most people don't like it. It's just that they're not willing to speak out against that extremely loud minority that keeps bitching about everything. And rise in minority populations. Yeah, that's happening, and a lot of people on the left act like it's a good thing. It's not. I mean, at absolute best, it could be seen as neutral. uh, it's really bad actually because everybody acts like on the left at least acts like diversity is a strength. That's not true. America was strongest when it was overwhelmingly white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That was when the country was at its strongest. Because it was more united. Now, personally, I do believe that you can have a multi-ethnic state that is stable, but only if it has one common culture to hold it together. And unfortunately, the left has done everything in their power to push multiculturalism. And you can't have a multicultural state that's stable. It just doesn't work. So they have destroyed the United States. I personally expect that within the next 5 years you'll see the breakup of the United States begin. And that's not really, being black-pilled in my opinion. I mean, yes, America is now a failed experiment, but, better times potentially lie ahead with the successor states that will exist, that will rise from the ashes, Anyway, getting back to this god-awful article. Blah, 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 blah. Johnson took a beloved cornerstone of Western culture and turned it on its head. Yeah, nobody wants you to do that. Nobody wants that. Much like Star Wars creator George Lucas had done with the franchise's prequel trilogy. Yeah, and a lot of people were very disappointed in that because he seemed to forget what was good about Star Wars. This is I'm not going to go really into it, but I will mention really quickly. This is why it gets on my nerves whenever somebody Doomcock, whoever, fucking talks about how, at least the artist got to realize his vision. When they talk about, realizing your artistic vision, that's not a good thing. Like it more often than not, it really is not a good thing. George Lucas did the original trilogy, and it was great. Everybody loved it. It was wonderful. Were there some things wrong with it? Probably, but it overwhelmingly very positive view of it. So tons of people loved the original trilogy. That was not George getting to realize his vision. That was George being under time constraints and budget constraints and having executives look over his shoulder and whatnot and probably telling him he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that. That was him not being able to realize his vision. He had to work within constraints, but the result of working within constraints that he didn't have control, the situation he didn't have full control of, was something wonderful. It's kind of like how, just people in general, human beings are often at their best when they have to persevere through adversity. That's just a fact. A lot of us don't like adversity. I don't. I don't have to. I don't have to like it. But but I realize that oftentimes when you have to struggle against it, that's when you're at your best. The prequel trilogy is George getting to realize his vision, and it was nowhere near as good. The same thing is true of like Ridley Scott. It's like, he did, things like Alien and Blade Runner, and it's like, it's like, yeah, but again, he was working with other people and he didn't get to realize his artistic vision. But him having little to no constraints is Prometheus or Alien Covenant. That's what happens when you see him getting to realize his vision. And was it good? Nope. So, it's not always a good thing. As a matter of fact, it generally seems to be a bad thing when the artist gets to realize their vision. All right, get back to it. In the film, Johnson questions the beliefs and principles of the saga's legendary heroes and lore. That's a stupid thing to do. The journey of each character is defined by a failure that could have been avoided if characters from different races, genders, and age groups simply communicated with one another. What the fuck are you talking about? Seriously, what the hell are they talking about here? Are they talking about how, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, Admiral Gender Studies wouldn't fucking tell your ace fighter pilot what the hell she's planning? Was the enemy eavesdropping inside their ship? No. Could she have fucking shared her plan with him, and then he would have been like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. And instead she was just like, shut up, bigot, go away. Go away. I don't need a man mansplaining things to me. I'm in charge here. And then, surprise, surprise, he decides, this bitch is going to get us all killed. I have to do something. And then, oh, it's your fault. It's just like everything goes wrong. It's your fault because you tried to do something instead of just shutting the fuck up and doing as you were told. It's just so dumb. They're trying to excuse bad writing, among other things here. In one scene, he sends iconography of the past up in flames, only to imply that the parts worth saving would be passed on to the next generation. I'm not even sure what the fuck they're talking about. Are they talking about the fucking Jedi tree, the books or whatever, which, that was never a thing before anyway, so, I don't know. Who gives a shit? It's dumb. The next generation includes a woman whose strength and resourcefulness are attributed to her lived experiences and not a power from her lineage. Oh, dear God. Are they fucking talking about Rey? Is that what they're saying here? Attributed to her lived experiences. What, growing up on a desert planet? Oh, I grew up on a desert planet, therefore I'm strong and resourceful. And not a power from her lineage. Which, by the way, that's another thing that that is complete bullshit. Apparently, it was something that you were supposed to take away from The Last Jedi, and some people did, and apparently thought that it was just great. And I didn't even, it never even occurred to me that that was meant to be something that you're supposed to take away from it, because it's stupid and obviously contradicted by all available evidence. And that is apparently that Rian Johnson was trying to suggest, like with the little boy at the end, the little slave kid who the heroes didn't fucking rescue, by the way. Like, rescue the fucking horse rabbit things or whatever the fuck they were, but the slave children, leave them behind. Fuck them. But like he reaches out and force pulls the broom to him or something. I just assumed, okay, he's a he's a force user. But apparently you were supposed to accept the premise that everyone can use the Force. It's like like certain fantasy stories or whatever, where the magic is not something that only some people have. The magic is something that anybody can learn how to do. It just takes time and study and whatnot to become proficient at it. Apparently that was supposed to be the takeaway there, is that, oh yeah, everybody can use the Force now. And it's like, no, that's not true. That's never been true. From all the talk about, the son of Skywalker must never become a Jedi, Luke revealing that Leia's his sister, and saying, the Force is strong in my family. My father has it, I have it, my sister has it. From that stuff in the original trilogy to all the talk of the midichlorian counts in the prequel trilogy, it's very clear that it's genetic, essentially. Maybe the precise details on how, are a little bit obscure, but it's very clear that yes, if you are strong in the Force, then your children will be strong in the Force. That's how it works. That's obvious to anybody who's ever watched any of the movies. This idea that, oh, everybody has the ability to use the Force, they just have to learn. That's stupid. It's stupid, and it's absolutely not true. And if they want to try to make that retcon, it's just dumb. And look, I'm sorry that everybody in this day and age thinks that everything has to be about, equality and all this crap. People are not equal. There are people who are taller than I am. There are people who are prettier than I am. There are people who are stronger than I am. There are people who will live longer than I will because they have better genes than I do. There are people more or less prone to certain cancers than I am because of their genetic lineage. It's nothing to be upset about. It's just the way it is, folks. Get the fuck over yourself. That's just how things are. And life isn't fair. People are not made equal. Do I think that we are all equally valuable? Yes. I believe in a certain level of equality. I believe that the law should treat us equally. I believe that, that we are all made in God's image, and therefore all of our lives are equally sacred. But, the idea that, oh, we're exactly the same. No, we're not. We're all unique. We're all individuals. Even identical twins will differ somewhere on something. And the idea that, well, everyone can be a Jedi. Well, what if everyone was a Jedi? Then why is there anything interesting then about being a Jedi if everybody can be one? That's like, what's the point of telling the story of Superman if everybody has his powers? If everyone is Superman, everyone is a Kryptonian and has superpowers, then what's the point? There's no point in telling that story. You like it or not, you tell stories about special people, about unique people, you know, and it doesn't even have to be because they're uniquely, more powerful than others. They just have to be unique, period. But you read a story about a particular person because they're them, because the character is interesting. You don't fucking, have just, oh, they're all the same. Everybody's the same. I mean, how goddamn boring would that be? Anyway, a resilient fighter played by British Nigerian actor John Boyega. And you want to talk about racism? Here you have John Boyega playing the black stormtrooper, who by the end of the movie, the first movie, not the Last Jedi, no, the Force Awakens. By the end of the Force Awakens, what do we find out about him? He's the janitor. They made the black guy the janitor. It's it's the unintentional racism and humor of the left. It's so funny. At least I assume it's unintentional. But yeah, you want to say, oh, it's so basic bitch or whatever to point out that the left are the real racists, and it's like, yeah, but it's true. It's still true. They're the ones obsessed with race, and they're the ones that keep on accidentally, presumably, doing shit like that, like making the black guy the janitor, and I guess they're thinking, oh, it's funny because we're not looking at him as the black guy as the janitor. We're looking at him as the guy as the janitor. And they were wearing their sexism hat and trying to be like a strong, empowered woman. Dumb guy who's the fucking janitor. At that moment, and failing to realize that they were simultaneously making fun of a black man, not just a man, a black man. Anyway, who had fought against all odds to free himself from an oppressive regime. I don't remember there being an enormous amount of odds against him. And the next leader of the resistance heroes, which that's kind of dumb. Why is there a resistance? I mean, it's basically just like Rebellion 2.0, but for some reason there's a like the First Order exists, but apparently they're not like the Empire. They don't have control over the galaxy, but they're a rising power. And then you have the New Republic, which is basically just like, it's supposedly, I guess, all over the place, but also we never see any military force or anything. They're it's like they're there, but they're not there. We forgot to show them existing, except briefly before they were vaporized in the first movie. And then you have Leia leading the Resistance. Apparently because the New Republic wouldn't get off its ass and do anything, so she's like, well, I'm going to found a military of my own to fight the new Imperial threat. It's just trying to recreate the previous situation with the Rebels versus the Empire, which could have been done so much better in so many different ways. But why do it that way? Why not do what the books did, which was tell the story of the rise of the New Republic, or once the New Republic was established, how it continued to fight against, former Imperial warlords or the remnants of the Empire, etc. Anyway. Played by Guatemalan American actor Oscar Isaac. And I guess they're claiming racism because people didn't like him or something. But to be honest, I didn't even realize that Oscar Isaac was Hispanic. Apparently he's Hispanic, but I didn't. It didn't even cross my mind to think one way or the other about him. It's just like, okay, it's just a dude. At the beating heart of the film is a courageous mechanic, Rose Tico. I don't remember her being that courageous, honestly. Played by Vietnamese American actress Kelly Marie Tran. Yes, Kelly Marie Tran, apparently very sweet, a lot of lies told about how she was supposedly bullied off social media. Anyway, Rose's ceaseless compassion and drive to dismantle inhumane powers around her culminate in the most critical line of the film, that to truly defeat those who seek to subjugate you, your true power is saving what you love, but not destroying what you hate. Yeah. You know what that comes from? That comes from the climax or near climactic part of the film where Finn decides, John Boyega's character decides to make a selfless sacrifice of himself to ram the weapon that's about to breach the base that they're hiding in. And it's like, anybody watching who has, any sense whatsoever was thinking, oh wow, it's like they're actually going to do this. They're going to have Finn sacrifice himself and earn great respect from us all for doing so. I mean, not that we want him to die, but but being willing to sacrifice yourself to save others, it's a desirable trait. It's a heroic trait. And, it's like, wow, they're going to let him be the hero. They're going to let Finn be the hero and save everybody. And then she plows into him with her speeder and nearly kills him. And gives this stupid line about, you win by saving what you love, not destroying what you hate. That's beyond stupid. And if you didn't have, Deus Ex Machina coming in shortly in the form of, hologram Luke and then, Rocklift and Rey, then everybody would have fucking died because Rose Tico wouldn't allow Finn to sacrifice himself to save everybody. It was just stupid. It was truly awful writing. Just terrible. These themes characterizations make The Last Jedi a film that dares to move culture into a more diverse and hopeful future. Again, people are like, diversity is a strength. No, it's not. It's just not. And the less united people are in a common culture, common vision, whatever, the weaker that group, nation, whatever it becomes. And in response, the film has been faced with an organized hate campaign against it. That's not true. That is not true at all. The organized, first of all, I don't know that it's really all that organized. It's probably mostly spontaneous. It's not hate in the way that they're trying to make it sound like it's hate. And it's not really a campaign per se. It's just people expressing their outrage that this Star Wars film was awful. And it was. And it's not got anything to do with, it's too diverse and we hate that. No, nobody said that. Nobody complained about, oh my God, there's a black dude in it. It's like a lot of people thought that Finn was one of the best characters in the fucking film, and we would have loved to have seen him actually get to be the hero, but no, goddammit, they just won't let that happen. Anyway, most publications discussing hate against The Last Jedi are quick to note that the backlash has manifested into racism, specifically against Tran and Boyega. The stuff about Tran, that's bullshit. They keep lying about that. And Boyega is like, as far as I know, none of the fans were against John Boyega at all. As far as I know, we all liked him. All thought that insofar as he was able, allowed to be a decent character, he was definitely one of the better parts of the film, of all of the films. Esquire has arguably gone the furthest in its critique against The Last Jedi hate, attributing the worst of the negativity to neckbeards. I don't understand. What is the deal with the term neckbeards? Like you're not supposed to let hair grow on your neck. What, you're supposed to shave that all the way up to your jawline or something? I don't understand. I mean, why is it so bad to just let it grow naturally? It's weird. A belittling term for terminally a belittling term for terminally online? Terminally online. Okay. Men who hold misogynistic views. Again, why? I mean, what? Only misogynists let their beards grow on their necks? Everybody else shaves? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Um, However, it is not enough to call these people fan fans. What? Okay, am I already going loopy and reading this thing? However, it is not enough to call these people quote unquote fans simply just read the rest of the sentence and it starts to make sense. Simply pushing back against The Last Jedi's themes of diversity or change. Okay, nobody's pushing back against the themes of diversity or change. There's nothing inherently wonderful about diversity or change, but nobody's pushing back against that because that's not the problem. The problem is it was a shitty movie. It was bad writing, bad storytelling. Nor is it enough to label them trolls, crybabies, or the often misused term incels. Well, I love how, it's like they're claiming that people who don't like the fucking movie, people who don't like the movie are against it because of diversity, because of change. That's racism, misogyny, blah 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 blah, and that's bullshit. And it's like, however, it's not enough to call these people trolls, crybabies, or incel. In other words, it's not enough to use hateful terminology to describe them. So you're complaining that their hate, they're hating on the film because they're racist or misogynist or something. It's not enough to call them names. It's like, well, how about you don't call them names, because that's you being a hateful asswipe towards them, not the other way around. We need to talk about the fact that almost 40% of negative YouTube videos mentioning The Last Jedi are from radical right-wing, not true, or alt-right accounts. These accounts have also dedicated their channels to hate campaigns against Captain Marvel star Brie Larson. Again, that's because Captain Marvel was not a good film. It was not a well-made film. It was not well-written. And Brie Larson at least doesn't seem to be a good actress. I haven't seen her other stuff, so it's possible she actually does emote more effectively in other films, but in Captain Marvel, she was pretty wooden. Former SNL cast member Leslie Jones, isn't she a racist bitch? I'm pretty sure. And feminist YouTuber Anita Sarkeesian, I know she's a bitch. And again, it's not because of what these people are that anybody dislikes them. It's because of who they are. It's because of their personalities. It's because of the way they treat others. It's like, yeah, they're hateful, and so we dislike hateful people, and for that we are called haters. It's weird. We need to discuss how the leaders of hate mongering against the film are radical conservatives, including Ben Shapiro. Okay, Ben Shapiro is conservative, I suppose, but he is not radical. As a matter of fact, Ben Shapiro is what I would term the he's not the controlled opposition. He's the approved opposition, because he's never really going to be silenced the way that some people will, because the establishment on both sides knows that he's never going to say anything that's particularly radical. He's going to be a pretty much kind of an establishment right winger, conservative, whatever you want to call him. He's going to be sort of an establishment shill, and he's never really going to go too far off script in any direction, so it's safe to let him talk. So, anyway. Founder of right-wing website The Daily Wire and former editor-at-large at Breitbart News. Breitbart is notably responsible for pushing alt-right ideology mainstream. I don't. Probably that's not true. I don't. It's like I read Breitbart. Um, I guess in 2016, around election time, something like that. Maybe a little bit afterwards, but I stopped reading them after a while. I just no point. Um, anyway, but alt right, it's like I very much doubt that. It's like the only way you get Breitbart to be alt right is probably by um, warping what alt right means or something. It's like we need to discuss how the hashtag campaigns calling for fans to boycott Solo, a Star Wars story over hatred of The Last Jedi, led by bloggers who spread white supremacist ideology under the cover of pop culture reporting. I'm not sure what they're talking about or who they're talking about, but that's probably also bullshit. We need to discuss the racist hashtag boycott Star Wars 8, 7, 8. Was that? Yeah. Boycott Star Wars 7 hashtag. I wasn't on Twitter or whatever at the time, so I wasn't familiar with that one. Aimed at The Force Awakens actor John Boyega. Was it? I mean, again, I wasn't I wasn't paying attention back then, so I don't know. It was started by members of an organization designated as a hate group by a leading United States civil rights organization. I'll bet that whatever that organization is itself a hate group, because there's left-wing hate groups that that's what they are basically. They just go around designated everyone on the right as a hate group. Oh, you're talking about Star Wars, you're a hate group. Like it's probably the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center. They fucking suck. They should be branded as a hate group themselves. Yet was written off as mere internet trolling. Well, a lot of times that's what it is. Like I mean, well, look. Okay, by the way, back Deus Vault, live on Indiegogo. A lot of people describe John Delarose here, who is, Hispanic, by the way. They describe him as, alt-right. They describe him as hateful and so on. He trolls people. He does. He definitely does that. He enjoys that. But he doesn't hate. That is a total mischaracterization. But that's the sort of thing that you see. You see people talking about, hate, these people are racists, and they're and it's amazing how many non-white people are described as white supremacists. It's amazing how many black people these days are white supremacists. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing how the left has to continually shift how it defines things in order to continue pushing its propaganda, because its propaganda doesn't fit with observable reality. Anyway, blah 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 blah. So, John is a troll. That is true. He will admit that himself. This kickstarted a slew of racist harassment against Lucasfilm employees. I wouldn't count on that being true. Authors and actors that made Star Wars fandom a hotbed for alt-right recruitment in the ongoing 21st century culture wars. We need to talk about how this so-called fan backlash is part of a larger movement to change and control culture, put into motion by former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon in 2014. Most people, I think you'll find that they're talking about in this article, probably don't know who the fuck Steve Bannon is. Now, that doesn't necessarily, of course, mean that he hasn't had any indirect influence on them somehow or other, but but people treat Steve Bannon as some kind of fucking boogeyman or whatever, and it's just ludicrous. And it was a movement that successfully led to far right governmental shifts in the United States, the UK, India, Italy, and Africa. That's not some sort of master plan by Steve Bannon. that's just a cultural paradigm shift. Styx, Hex, and Hammer will, has talked about that for years. So anyway, I believe it's raining. All right. Leveraging over 1 million tweets and greater than 1,000 YouTube videos, this article will track the successful rise of radical right-wing hate, white supremacy, and misogyny in fan spaces, starting with Gamergate and leading up to the rise of Skywalker. Again, they're talking out their ass. This is obviously going to be bullshit. Oh my God, how long have we been doing this? And it's only just started. How far we have to go. This article is an analysis of the closely connected networks that enable hate to spread from influential white supremacist groups to mainstream YouTubers. It is a warning about the dangers of apathy and lack of education around organized hate. You talk about lack of, education, knowledge. Left-wingers have a lock on that. They never know what they're talking about. Somebody disagrees with them, and that means it's organized hate. And highly evolved technological spaces that will only continue to develop at a faster rate. But most of all, this article is a plea for any entity that has enough power to control a narrative, whether it be major corporations like Disney or entertainment journalists at Vanity Fair, to be aware of how hate is designed to manipulate those narratives without most people ever realizing it. So in other words, you're begging for corporate censorship. Well, it's always fun to do that until it bites you in the ass. And it will. It's just a matter of time. This is the full story of how organized bigotry latched itself onto the Star Wars sequel trilogy and won. Oh my God. I'm beginning to think that maybe I should break this up into multiple videos. Because God, it's gonna be just forever. I don't know. I guess I can split it later. Okay, let's power through. What will be discussed? 1. Defining 21st century culture wars. Gamergate, Cambridge Analytica, and the rise of the alt-right. Timeline of outrage media. What is Gamergate? You're probably going to lie. White nationalism targets the Star Wars franchise. That sounds like complete utter horseshit. 2. The new Gamergate, the rise of alt-right ideology in Star Wars fandom. Was The Last Jedi polarizing? A Twitter analysis. All roads lead to YouTube. An analysis. The Star Wars alt-right recruitment problem. Insane. 3. How far right hate turns into fact? What the fuck? The danger of clickbait headlines. Nobody's more clickbaity than the mainstream media, are they? Socks, bots, and super users. Hashtags and boycotts. Lack of education about the dangers of online conversation. Oh, dangers of online conversation. My God, we mustn't talk on the internet, apparently. 4. The generational cost of hate. The alt-right's successful political attack against progressive culture. Progressive culture? Is there such a thing? The targeting of progressivism, progressive and diverse creatives. Diverse, no, but progressive, possibly. And it's perfectly legitimate to target people with bad political ideologies. People that subscribe to bad political ideas and want to push them, and if they get their way, like right now, it's like, the situation we're in right now, is a result of the left getting their way. And before it's over, even they are probably going to realize that they fucked up. But things are going straight to hell here, people. The targeting of progressive and diverse creatives. Mission completed. The Rise of Skywalker retcons The Last Jedi. I'm not sure in what way. I mean, does it even matter? The whole Disney trilogy is just garbage. What we never learned from Gamergate. Never Just Trolls, the reactionary right-wing network behind the fandom to alt-right pipeline. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Steve Bannon, former executive chairman, Breitbart News. I'm not super familiar with Steve Bannon, so I can't guarantee that I know everything that he's said or done or whatever. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure that he's a fairly decent conservative on some topics, and I think he's probably a little too liberal on some topics for my tastes. Um, so the idea that he's painted as some sort of evil far right boogeyman, it's not unlike how um, when I was a good little Democrat and back years ago, I used to be told by the people on MSNBC about how evil and far right wing people like Bill O'Reilly on Fox News were. And then in 2016, I started out, not paying a whole lot of attention to what was going on and just assuming, okay, this election cycle is going to be Hillary versus Jeb, and clearly I'm going to vote for Hillary. And then left-wing friends of mine told me that were further left than me, told me, oh no, you can't do that. So you can't vote for Hillary. She's terrible. And I was like, oh really? So I looked into it and learned that yeah, she's terrible. It's like, oh God, well I guess I got to support Bernie then. And interestingly enough, because MSNBC and CNN and the rest of the left-wing news media, they were all in the tank for Hillary, every last one of them. So there weren't any left-wing outlets besides TYT that you could go to hear Bernie get a fair shake on anything. They were all on Hillary's side. And ironically, the only place where Bernie was getting a fair hearing was on Fox and right-wing talk radio and whatnot. I mean, to be clear, they were against the Democrats, no matter who they were, but they were at least willing to, give equal attention or whatever to Bernie and Hillary. And when I actually started listening for the first time to people like Bill O'Reilly and Rush Limbaugh and whoever else, I discovered that Rush Limbaugh actually seems kind of a nice guy. I was always told he was so hateful, but he seems actually pretty polite and everything. And I was told how unbelievably far right wing Bill O'Reilly was, and found out that no, actually he's pretty fucking moderate, and he's on board with all kinds of gun control that I personally would not support. It's like, as a Democrat, I wouldn't support that gun control crap. So it's insane. So for the first time, I discovered that, yeah, the left has been lying to me. And if they've been lying to me about who these people on the right really are, about how they're terrible when they're not, what else have they been lying to me about? Real eye-opening experience. Anyway, so Steve Bannon, not some evil Darth Vader type or whatever, like he keeps being characterized as. All right, next tier or whatever. Peter Brimelow, President VDARE Foundation. Pardon me. I have never heard of this guy before. I've never seen him before. I've never heard of VDARE before. No clue what that stands for. As somebody who's, starting in 2016, listened to an awful lot of, right-wing commentators and whatnot, this Peter person obviously didn't penetrate very far. Wasn't as big a name as they're making him out to be if I never heard of him. Milo Yiannopoulos, former editor of Breitbart News. Now, obviously, I'm familiar with Milo. I always found him entertaining. he recently decided to come out as ex-gay or something like that, which uh, I don't know. I don't know. There's something boomerish and sort of like obsessed, self-obsessed with, obsessed with like personal improvement type shit. That there's something about his. I was like, oh, I'm working on my. I don't know. He just sounds narcissistic, which is not surprising coming from Milo, but Um, also sounds kind of cold. It's like apparently his longtime boyfriend, he married him, but now he has quote unquote demoted him to housemate, I believe he said. And then he just says something about, oh well, it's not as bad for him as it could be because I'm still just able to buy him a new Porsche every year or something like that. And it's like, I mean, maybe the marrying the guy was not because of love. Maybe it was just sort of a stunt. And if so, then okay. But if you actually supposedly married the guy because you loved him, and then you're like, well, we're not really married anymore because I've decided I'm an ex-homosexual, and so and apparently they have stopped having sex or something. The interview that I read, Milo was like, it had been, I forget how many hundreds of days or whatever since the last time that he accidentally had sex with his husband, and it's like I don't. It just I I don't know. I've never had a problem with gay marriage. I believe that the law should treat people equally. That either means allowing same-sex couples to get married just like opposite-sex couples, which is what happened, or outlawing, or not outlawing, but doing away with the state-run institution of marriage altogether, and saying that nope, marriage is something for the church to do. The state will simply issue domestic partnership contracts, and any two people can get that. Either way would have been fine. With me, as long as as long as you don't have second-class citizens. A lot of people act like because gay marriage was legalized, that automatically means all kinds of other things are bound to happen. Uh, yes and no. I mean, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it in Canada where they legalized marrying your pets now or something like that? But that insane people will decide to do insane things. Sure, the more insane the world gets, the more that's going to happen. But the idea that uh, allowing same-sex couples to get married automatically, has some sort of logical connection to marrying animals or marrying multiple people or marrying children or whatever the fuck. It's like, no, it doesn't. There's no logical connection there. So yeah, it's like, I mean, human beings are not logical, but still, there's no logical connection. There's no, it's like, no. Anyway, my opinion is you should marry whoever you fall in love with. Anyway, Ben Shapiro, former editor at large, Breitbart News. I wasn't even aware that he used to be at Breitbart. Um, I remember Ben Shapiro is pretty, like I said, he's pretty establishment, pretty milk toast. I don't care for him. I remember when I was first watching a lot of YouTube videos, I was watching Milo, I was watching various other independent people on YouTube, and Ben Shapiro videos kept being suggested. Like they were in my suggested for videos for years, and finally, a long enough time of not watching them, finally they're no longer there. It took forever. They kept on suggesting them, and fucking Jordan Peterson too. He's coming up here, I believe, in this chart. Paul Kersey, contributor vdare.com. I may have heard his name before, but I've never paid any real attention to this guy. I still don't know what VDare is. Um, and if I've heard his name, it's only somebody else mentioning it. So I don't know anything about him. Richard Spencer, neo-Nazi activist. I don't know for sure whether Richard Spencer defines himself as a neo-Nazi or not. He is apparently and I don't know that it's, again, accurate to call him a white supremacist, but I do believe that he is a white identitarian. He is racist. As far as I'm aware, he's racist. He does define himself, I believe, as alt-right, and may be the only person on this whole list that actually does that. He had, I think he's the one who had some absolutely insane idea about how Georgia should be made into a black ethno-state, and all of the white people who live in Georgia should be forced by the government to move out, and all of the black people in the rest of America forced to move to Georgia. And maybe something similar with making Wyoming into a white ethno-state. Like forcing all of the non-whites to move out of Wyoming and forcing all of the whites to move to Wyoming or something like that. And it's authoritarian left-wing, because the left is authoritarian, the right is not. It's like, well, I mean, neo-Nazi. It's like, you know what Nazi is short for? It's short for the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The only part of that that's even slightly right-wing is the term nationalist. And you stop being a nationalist as soon as you start invading other countries. That makes you an imperialist. So the Nazis were decidedly left-wing. They were for government-run healthcare, government-run education, government child care, etc., etc., etc. I mean, the list of socialist crap that they were in favor of is insane. And neo-Nazis and other white identitarian groups or whatever are the same fucking way. They are leftists. They want socialized single-payer health care. They just want it for whites only. I don't want it for anybody. It's like, I'm on the right. I am actually right-wing. So Richard Spencer can take his ridiculous ideas and shove it up his ass. Dave Rubin, Blaze TV network host. Dave used to be considered a left-winger. He used to consider himself that. He used to be considered that by other people. I think his being reclassified as right-wing is not so much because of his changing opinions, but rather because it's just like how Ronald Reagan used to say about him. He didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left him. So the left has moved further and further left, and they have left people like Dave Rubin, and me for that matter, behind. It's like, my pro-gay marriage stance and whatnot, ideas that I had from when I was a leftist, I still have those ideas. I'm still, in some respects, socially liberal, I suppose. Anyway, Mike Cernovich, host the Alex Jones Show. I didn't know that he'd become a regular host. I knew that he'd been a guest host from time to time. Jack Posobiec, correspondent, One America News Network. As far as I know, Jack Posobiec's a pretty decent. He's not far right, but he's not centrist. He's not really that moderate either. I think he's a solidly right sort of guy. Jordan Peterson, author, 12 Rules for Life. Jordan Peterson is probably insane. Not sure about that, but probably. He's had all kinds of problems. I know one thing for certain about Jordan Peterson. He is not to be trusted. He is absolutely not to be trusted. And I didn't need anybody else to tell me that. I watched a few of his videos back when he was first becoming popular on YouTube, and found him to be, it was like he made some good points, but then some things it's like, I'm not so sure about. and some things just kind of confusing on like what the fuck is he talking about. And then I happened to cross a clip of him um, being involved in a debate with William Lane Craig. Uh, for those of you who don't know, William Lane Craig is a Christian apologist. For those of you who don't know about Christian apologetics, it is not someone who says they're sorry for Christianity. It is apologetics is a is a what would you call it? A field of study or whatever. It's being able to you're supposed to study apologetics so that you're able to uh, give a reason for the faith that you have, to answer critics and whatnot. Anyway, so William Lane Craig is an apologist, a Christian apologist. He's a philosopher, um, Christian philosopher. Anyway, so he was Jordan Peterson was in this debate, him and somebody else versus William Lane Craig and someone else. Anyway, William Lane Craig brought up the fact that if God does not exist, then there is no ultimate purpose to anything. There can be no ultimate meaning to anything at all if there is no God. And that point is absolutely true, and it's completely inarguable. There's no real way to say, well, that isn't so, but because it is so. However, it's also incredibly easy to simply sidestep. The obvious reply to someone who raises that point is to simply say that, well, I don't need there to be an ultimate meaning, and then go on to say that you find plenty of meaning in the work that you do, the legacy you're going to leave your children, etc., etc. But instead of taking that obvious route, Jordan Peterson pulled from nothing a hypothetical suffering female child and said to William Lane Craig something along the lines of, anyone who would tell a suffering female child that her suffering has no meaning, well, that's the devil's own work. And William Lane Craig's the look on his face was kind of a what the fuck look, and kind of mirroring what I was thinking, because it's like, what the hell? That's just insane. But I recognized almost immediately that is a pure leftist tactic. It's I can't combat you on any sort of critical intellectual level. So instead, I want to tug at your heartstrings. I want you to get thinking with your heart instead of your head, so that you won't realize that my position is bullshit. That's what the left does. They're always about, you should feel like the left is the correct is the correct side to be on, because they're so compassionate and all this other shit. And of course the reality is they're not. Anyway, but from that moment on, I realized that Jordan Peterson was not to be trusted. Comic artist pro secrets YouTuber. That would be Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan is he's fun, he's cool, he's back Cyberfrog. He is he's become quite the character. He is right of center, but as he himself will point out, many people on the right consider him to be a liberal, because he is far from far right wing. And the reason why he's linked to Jordan Peterson is because he did the illustrations for 12 Rules of Life, I think. Paul Joseph Watson, editor, Infowars.com. I don't know how much he is. There was a thing a couple of years ago or whenever where there was talk like he was leaving Infowars, and I'm not sure if he actually did that or if he only just stopped being as often involved with them or something. I'm not sure what the hell went on with that. Alex Jones, founder of Infowars.com. I used to watch Alex Jones quite a bit. Um, I mean, I don't watch him anymore, but he used to be at least entertaining. A lot of people make jokes about how, he believes in conspiracy theories and things like the lizard people and whatnot. I watched him for like 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. I don't remember for sure exactly how long, but for a few years at least, I watched him pretty regular. The reason I stopped was really just because couldn't afford the investment in time. Infowars is, or the Alex Jones show, is formatted for terrestrial radio. So it's a 3-hour program every day. And they do what, Rush Limbaugh and other people, always tend to do on their programs, which is they don't, there's only so many things they have that they can talk about during their program. There's only so much news to go over or whatever. So they are really big about drawing every story out as long as possible and teasing things before they finally get around to talking about them. And, it just, it boils to, and also frequent commercial breaks. And so it just boils down to a massive waste of time for anybody listening to such things. I mean, I listened to Rush Limbaugh when I was in the car, but that's not that often, and certainly not for 3 fucking hours at a stretch. I'd listen to a few minutes as I'm going to work or coming back from work or going to visit somebody or whatever. It's like, just a few minutes here, a few minutes there. So I never sat down and try. I mean, you can find, stuff on the internet, I guess, that's on radio that you can listen to later or whatever. But it's like, it's too much time. It's like there's way too much stuff, to anyway. So yeah, and all the years that I listened to him, I don't remember him ever saying anything about the lizard people except to point out that people who make fun of him, that's what they always criticize him about. They always claim that he believes in the lizard people, except he's never said that. Like, he's never said anything about the lizard people. And when he says things like, that become memes, like they're turning the frickin' frogs gay, it's like, that was true. That was a BBC article about atrazine, not gay, but they were turning frogs, making frogs were becoming transgender or transsexual or whatever because of some chemical that was, polluting the water. So most things that he says that sound crazy are not actually crazy. It's like, that's another thing that was from the BBC, I believe, is him talking about them splicing spider DNA with goat DNA or something. It's like, that was a real thing. The BBC had an article about that. Yeah, it sounds weird. It sounds like sci-fi, but it's something that's actually being done. So, like I said, he sounds sensational because of the way that he presents things to be, uh, he's in character, as it were, and when he said that, when he was saying in court or whatever that he was playing a character, everybody latched onto that and they're like, oh, so everything he says is bullshit. And it's like, no, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. He's hyperbolic and he presents things in a very over-the-top manner. But most of the news or whatever that he's covering are, it's like it's real shit. So I've always found it ridiculous that people talk about Alex Jones like he's, like he's some complete whack job. And it's like, I realize that it's easy to think that he sounds that way, but he's not. Like, he's not a whack job. Mike Cernovich. Now, I do remember one time, and this is odd. It actually kind of mirrors something I remember, being a little bit, upset, disappointed, whatever. It just felt like this is a mischaracterization. I didn't care for that. From MSNBC. One time I was watching the Keith Olbermann show, watching Countdown with Keith Olbermann on MSNBC, and one of his worst people of the world, that day, this was a long time ago, years and years and years ago. Actually, probably nearly a decade ago by now. I don't remember precisely when it was, but anyway, but there was a Republican congressman who had been flirting with a 17-year-old male intern, and Keith and everybody else were apparently, decided to call him a pedophile. Now, the congressman, now, not defending his actions at all. It's totally inappropriate to flirt with your interns, especially if they're underage. But nevertheless, the congressman pointed out correctly that he had no interest in prepubescent children, which is what pedophilia actually refers to. That's what the word means. And that it was disgusting that everybody in the media or whatever was claiming that he was a pedophile. He was right to complain about that because they were totally mischaracterizing him. It's like, you can say that he's a creep, but saying pedophile, that's wrong. That's incorrect. And Keith, actually, I believe the way Keith phrased it, he says he's the worst person in the world, blah, 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 because of, what he did, blah, blah, blah. And he finished it with, and it was kind of odd, the phrasing, I'm pretty sure I remember, he said, and for not knowing when, not how, but when pedophilia was defined. And it's like, that's an odd way to phrase that. I don't know. Anyway, but something similar happened on the Alex Jones show one time when Mike Cernovich was there. Again, a congressman had gotten in some degree of trouble. This time not for an action, but it was a Democrat, and he had shared his screen for some video or whatever, and forgot to close one of his tabs that was open that said something about hentai. So he was looking at hentai. Yeah. And so Mike Cernovich and Alex Jones were there talking about this story, and it's like, yes, they talked about it, and yeah, the dude was obviously bullshitting when he said, "Oh, I didn't know what it was, and I was just looking up the definition or whatever." Bullshit. You were looking up, dirty cartoons to jerk off to, which, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Now, you want to make fun of him for it? Okay, fine. But where I didn't appreciate what Alex and Mike did was when they decided to embellish, or whatever you want to say, the story, because they first correctly said that it was, basically porno cartoons, and then they decided to say it always involved tentacles, which it doesn't always involve tentacles, although it often does, because hentai, of course, is Japanese, is a Japanese term for adult cartoons, and animated porn, whatever you want to call it. And frequently tentacles are involved, and that's because Japan has really fucking weird ass laws where apparently in Japanese hardcore pornography, live action, it's censored. The male genitals and female genitals of the actors are censored. They are pixelated. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, what is the point of hardcore pornography if you can't see what's going on? But that's what it looks like. The same thing applies to animated porn in Japan. If there is a depiction of female or male genitalia, apparently there has to be like a black strip across it or something at some point. It's like it doesn't have to be completely not there, but it has to be censored in some capacity. And so, in order to get around that, it's like, okay, well, you can't depict the, a male, you can't depict a penis without censoring it. So take something that's vaguely phallic shaped, a tentacle, and that gets around the law, so they don't have to put a black stripe across the tentacle unless the tentacle looks particularly like a penis. But if it just looks like a tentacle, then you're good to go. So that's why they do that shit. Anyway, but obviously, like I said, it doesn't always involve tentacles, but they decided to add that on there and say that, so that specifically he was looking at tentacle porn. And it's like, well, you don't know that. You're stretching the truth there. He might be, but he might not be. You don't know. And then they decided to go even further and say that not only does hentai always mean tentacles, it also always means underage girls that are being raped by tentacles. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Hentai does not always involve tentacles. It does not always involve non-consensual sex. And it does not always involve underage characters. So I felt that they were both going quite a bit over the line there. I did not appreciate that. I don't like people lying regardless of which side they're on or, what the lie is about. All right, and now finally the bottom of this. Oh, and apparently the red means spread hate against Lucasfilm employees / Star Wars sequel trilogy. Whatever. Tim Pool, YouTuber. Tim Pool is the ultimate fence sitter. I have no use or respect for him. He is such a centrist wet rag. There's no point in anybody listening to him. And you want to talk about clickbaity titles. He has perhaps the most clickbaity titles of anybody on this list. Geeks and Gamers, YouTuber. Geeks and Gamers is the name of Jeremy's company. That would be Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. And beside him there is the Quartering YouTuber. That would be Jeremy from The Quartering, because they're both named Jeremy. Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, his personal political persuasions seem to be more solidly right-leaning, but I have limited sympathy or use for him because he is under the illusion that diversity is a strength. Like, he seems to, like, he runs a company called Geeks and Gamers, and he seems to really pride himself on the fact that, oh, I've got black people that work for me, I've got women that work for me, I've got a lesbian that works for me, and half the people that I've got working for me are left-wingers, At least a couple of them, I think, are essentially SJWs. And it's like, he acts like that's a good thing. That, oh, look, I employ people that disagree with me politically. And it's like, that's not good. At best, it's neutral. But ultimately, it's like, if any of them have any SJW tendencies, they're going to destroy your company eventually. And, he's apparently too stupid to understand that. And he's also more obsessed with himself and his company, apparently, because, my brand, he keeps going on about my brand. He apparently cares more about that than he does about the fans who are supporting that brand. Well, when you throw your own fans under the bus, that's not a good look. Doesn't end well. The Quartering, he's kind of the same in that he has his sort of professional, generally anti-SJW bent, and then he has another channel that's his personal channel where he's more political and conservative, but the reality is that he's even more of a milquetoast centrist than Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers is. Jeremy from The Quartering is he's very cowardly. I'm sorry. He seems like a nice guy, but he's a coward. That seems to be pretty obvious. He'll say things, and it seems like he's kind of, being brave in his statements, and then it's usually a matter of time before he starts walking things back. Anytime he gets any pushback from people on what he said, then it's like, oh, I didn't mean it, I didn't mean it, I didn't mean it. Step carefully away, because he's just like that. He's weak. I'm sorry. Like I said, he's a nice guy, but he's weak. He needs his spine stiffened. And people always make excuses, for people who are being weak, like, oh, well, he has a family to feed and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, whatever. But trying to placate cancel culture weirdos is not ever going to work. So you might as well earn more people's respect by just taking a firm stand. Okay, moving on with the rest of this interminably long thing. Defining 21st century culture wars, Gamergate, Cambridge Analytica, and the rise of the alt-right. In 2018, revelations about the UK-based data firm Cambridge Analytica revealed that the firm had used data from 50 million Facebook profiles to target users with personalized and politically driven advertisements. The ads were often racist in nature, fueling the spread of white supremacy and racist fear into the mainstream and successfully manipulating presidential elections in Africa, India, the UK, and the US. That sounds like a bullshit conspiracy theory, quite frankly. At the center of this controversy was Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist for Donald Trump, former executive chairman of far-right media site Breitbart News. They're not really that far-right. I mean, they're farther right than some, but they're not that far to the right. And former vice president of Cambridge Analytica. I've heard of Cambridge Analytica, but I don't remember offhand what context. Bannon is credited by whistleblowers of the Cambridge Analytica scandal as an important figure who sought to destabilize governments in influential regions around the world and shift their politics towards populism and far-right extremism. Okay. Shifting politics towards populism is generally considered a good thing, because you know what populism means? It means that whatever it is popular. Yeah, another word for that is democracy. I mean, the left is all about democracy. But when it does, when the people want things that the left doesn't think they should have, then suddenly they don't like democracy so much. And far-right extremism, well, first of all, let's define right versus left real quick. The historical context has something to do with what is it, French Parliament or something like that, on who sits on which side. That's why they're talking about this side of the aisle and that crap. But in modern American culture, left versus right politics basically can be boiled down to the fundamental ideology of the left being collectivism. The left believes in collectivism. The right believes in individualism. Now, it's pretty easy to logically determine which of these is the correct side to be on. The right. Why? Well, when you prioritize the collective, the good of the collective, then it's all too easy to trample the individual while you're doing so. But when you prioritize the good of the individual, when you make individual rights paramount, the individual will prosper. And by extension, because, what is the, what is the collective except a group of individuals? Obviously, the collective will prosper as well. So, pretty obvious when you stop and think about it. So that means that, like, truly far right-wing extremism would, in fact, be somebody, like, really, really, really far right extremism would basically just be somebody advocating for, like, anarcho-capitalism or something, advocating there should be no government at all. everything should be voluntary. Which, I don't advocate for that because that's stupid, because that's never going to work. If it's a nice idea in a way, but you do have to have a government for, various reasons. I mean, there's some minimal amount that it has to be there to do. For one thing, if your group of people in one area decide we're going to get rid of our government because we don't want to have one, we think we're better off without one, well, people a little ways away who didn't get rid of their government, they're going to have an army, and they're going to decide, you know what, we're going to annex you because we don't want your chaos right next to our order. So for defense, among other reasons, you got to have a government. So I'm sorry, I want a small government, but you got to have a government of some description. So anyway, far right extremism would be, anarchy essentially. Ultimate expression of individualism. The left always insists that far right is just like far left. Oh, it's authoritarian. It's like, no, it's not. The extreme of liberty. The right believes in personal liberty. The extreme of liberty is no constraints whatsoever. In other words, no authority. Period. So, it's just everybody wants to try to pretend like, oh, on the right you have Hitler and on the left you have Stalin. That's not true. Hitler was on the left, and so was Stalin, and so was Mao, and so was Pol Pot. I'm sorry, but all of the worst people were on the left. Politically, those, you're talking about the great mass murderers of the 20th century. They were left wingers. I'm sorry that you really want things to be balanced. I remember I had an argument with a friend of mine. She was raised Christian, but she's an atheist, and with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about Islam, she insisted on believing that Christianity and Islam are equally bad. I tried to explain to her using, facts and reason that no, objectively, Islam is worse. But she was not willing to hear it. Didn't want to hear it. Basically told me to stop talking about it because she didn't want to hear the truth. That's what the left is like. They don't want to hear the truth. They want to believe things like, there's balance, like both sides are equally bad, or the extremes of both sides are equally bad, or something, and it's not true. I remember somebody on Twitter claiming that all groups have their extremists or whatever, and they they probably listed Nazis as the extreme of the right wing, and the communists as the extreme of the left wing, when of course they're both on the left wing. And I think tried to say that, oh well, it's religion is balanced as well, because there's Islam has jihadis, and Christianity, I believe this person said, Christianity has the KKK, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? The KKK, I don't know or care what they claim. They're not Christian. You know how I know? Because they're not following the teachings of Christ. Christ never said be a white supremacist or whatever. He never said any of that shit. That's fucking ridiculous. So you're not following the teachings of Christ. You're not a fucking Christian. Get the fuck out of here with this. That's like people who try to claim that, oh, Hitler, he was a Christian. It's like, early on he may have claimed that, but he fucking was not a Christian. Oh my God. People are so stupid. But yeah, the whole idea of, oh, it's balanced, both sides are equally good or equally bad or whatever, that's bullshit. It's not true. Anyway, Christopher Wiley, a data scientist for Cambridge Analytica, states that Bannon was interested in the firm because Bannon follows this idea of the Breitbart doctrine. Pardon me, never heard of that. Which is that if you want to change politics, you first have to change culture. Oh, now that well, I don't know about that as a doctrine, but I do remember that Andrew Breitbart is forever being quoted as having said that politics is downstream from culture. And, as near as I can tell, he's correct. Stated that Bannon wanted weapons to fight a culture war. Well, we're in one. You might as well fight it. Bannon's culture war against progressive politics was also fought through his work as executive chairman of Breitbart News, a radical, not really that radical, conservative site commonly credited with bringing the alt-right ideas of white supremacy. That's, again, a bunch of bullshit. Anti-identity politics. Oh, that's actually a good thing. Anti-identity politics. That's what the left is forever guilty of, is identity politics. They want, which breeds nothing but division, like I said. That's their divide and conquer strategy. And anti-liberal journalism. Depends on what you mean. I mean, as Chunk Uyghur, Cenk Uyghur of the Young Turks has happily stated, classical liberalism is pretty damn conservative. And it's like, yeah, it is. Journalism into the mainstream. Breitbart's success leverages a long timeline of conservative outrage media culture that was harnessed by Rush Limbaugh in the 1980s and perfected by Roger Ailes and Fox News. The quick acceleration of technology and the creation of social media platforms in the mid to late 2000s created centralized communities that were easy for conservative outrage media to target and radicalize. Timeline of outrage media. Ronald Reagan tore down this wall, the Fairness Doctrine, in 1987, and Rush Limbaugh was the first man to proclaim himself liberated from the East Germany of liberal media domination. Well, look, the mainstream media has a significant liberal bent to it, and always has. I mean, even now, it's like, it's the mainstream media, at least, is overwhelmingly left-wing. That's not really a good thing, I mean, it would be better if there were like true journalists, if there was any true journalism where people just state the facts of what happened and let people make up their own minds about what it means. But you don't get that. You don't get that anywhere. Everybody is always trying to spin whatever's going on in whatever direction they want it spun. So I don't think there's any need for the right to feel bad about doing that when the left is definitely not going to stop doing that themselves. October 14th, 1984, Rush Limbaugh starts his controversial radio show on local Sacramento radio station. 1985, multimillionaire Rupert Murdoch purchases 6 television stations across 10 large national markets, including New York, L.A., Dallas, and D.C. At this time, he also purchases a large stake in Fox Studios. August 5th, 1987, FCC repeals Fairness Doctrine, required that TV and radio stations to provide free airtime for responses to any controversial opinions that were broadcast. Somehow I doubt that that was really helpful to the right. July 1988, Rush's radio show gets picked up to go national on WABC AM radio. I'll tell you what television didn't do at the time. It didn't reflect what people really thought. Well, of course it didn't. I mean, they're sitting there saying, wait a minute, New York's going broke, Los Angeles is broke, the United States is broke, everything the government has run is broke, Social Security is broke. All that's true. Medicare is broke, the military is broke. Why do we want these guys making all these decisions for us? Good points. 1990. Rush goes on tour. Makes that sounds like the band, doesn't it? Rush goes on tour. Makes appearance for 2 years in a total of 45 shows. It makes $360,000, 545. When was this written? 500 545,746 today. When is this written? When was this written? How long have they been working on this, I wonder? Because it says, look, I happened to look this up. I was curious about this, so I think it was 2019. So I looked up what inflation had been from 1989 to 2019, 30 years. And it had been right at 200%. So, 1989 dollars were worth double 2019 dollars. Well, double 360K is 720K, isn't it? That's a lot more than 545K. Which should not include his salary for his radio. That's weird. That makes me wonder if this has been in the works for a very long time. That's odd. His radio program. By the end of this year, his show was aired at 650 radio stations nationwide. This was a big deal as there was no social media at the time, no Daily Show or news satire shows out there. The only 24-hour news network was CNN. Yeah, but they were faking shit even back then. According to a 2001 U.S. News and World Report, he had an 8-year contract at a rate of $31.25 million per year. Yeah, good, nice work if you can get it. 92 to 96, Rush Limbaugh had a TV show produced by Roger Ailes, former media consultant for Nixon, Reagan, and H.W. Bush. Also, around this time, Murdoch was pardon me, was in the process of building a news network specifically designed to appeal to viewers who felt the news media like 60 Minutes and the New York Times was too liberal. Well, I'm sure it was, although it's only become more so. Fox had a series of successful tabloid infotainment shows. Murdoch hired Ailes as a consultant to build this major news media brand. Around this time, MSNBC, formerly America Talking, which Roger Ailes also worked on under NBC's employ, was created via a partnership with Microsoft and GE, who owns NBC. Do they still own NBC, or should that have been owned NBC? However, that could be another, indictment of how long this thing's been in the works. However, despite the partnerships and various executives coming and going from MSNBC, they didn't have the clear vision that Fox News had. Well, no, MSNBC's been a, generally terribly run organization, pretty sure. I'll tell you one thing that was, I would consider a misstep, was when Microsoft decided to include, tried to, they made Windows 95 and it actually, improved a lot of things, and then they made Windows 98, which basically just tried to integrate the Internet Explorer web browser into the desktop operating system and put ads on your fucking computer desktop that you couldn't get rid of. They tried to do that. They tried to be like, hey, watch MSNBC, and it's like, what the fuck is it? Anyway, October 7th, 1996, Fox News goes live in Manhattan, New York. That day, Bill O'Reilly airs his show, the O'Reilly Report, in which he notes How did television news become so predictable and in some cases so boring? Few broadcasts take any chances these days, and most are very politically correct. Well, we're going to be different, stimulating, and a bit daring. Emphasis on a bit. But at the same time, responsible and fair. That day, they have a series of interviews from people such as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That shows probably that Netanyahu has been in power for far too long. Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, and GOP presidential candidate Bob Dole. To quote from Salon.com, for the desired core audience, the channel offered someone to root for, someone to root against, and someone to vote for. Additionally, the company's use of colorful graphics was paramount in order to gain viewers' attention and to grasp the talking points of the host. They pulled in 17 million cable subscribers. Well, that was big numbers were a lot easier to come by in the past when there wasn't as much different crap on. 2000, the U.S. presidential election sees a 440% increase in viewers for Fox, surpassing both CNN and MSNBC. I remember that night. Was I watching MSNBC? I may have been just watching NBC. October 1st, 2003. 4chan launches. I had no idea it was that fucking old. It is mainly used as a forum to discuss anime. June 2005. Reddit launches. Didn't realize that was quite that old either. With the intention of it being used as a social news forum. This and 4chan are an early form of what is now social media. Does this mean they're not going to talk about MySpace? October 2006, YouTube launches with $3.5 million funding from Sequoia Capital. 2007 and 2008, smartphones are released to the public and app stores become available. 2010, since their inception, Fox News demographic laid anywhere between the 25 to 54 age group. In 2010, their demographic skewed older. By 2015, the median age of a primetime viewer is 68 years old. Yeah, that's true for, the shift to older and older viewers is true across all the cable news and shit, because younger people are not watching that. They get their news online. They're not watching the old bullshit, which is for the best. When mainstream media finally goes out of business, that will be a good day. When they're all dead and buried, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, when they're all gone, it will be better for all of us. Corporate media needs to die. Well, corporate news media needs to die. Corporate entertainment media, I wouldn't necessarily be against keeping, but since they're not willing to just entertain, they have to try to push an agenda on everybody. They might as well die too. Fuck them. And I think they are headed out. I think they're on the way out, and the future is going to wind. It's going to be, it's not going to be fan films, but it's going to be fans of franchises, whatever it was, Star Wars, for instance, making their own sci-fi original shit, probably crowdfunding it. That's probably going to wind up being the future of entertainment eventually. Additionally, YouTube surpasses 2 billion views a day and has official channels from Disney, Turner, Univision, and of course Fox News. 2012. In 2005, Breitbart.com was founded by Andrew Breitbart, an American conservative journalist. It originally started off as a news aggregator and then evolved into a staunchly conservative news site over the years. 2011, the site received $11 million funding from billionaire conservative investor Robert Mercer. By 2012, Andrew Breitbart has passed and the leadership is turned over to Steve Bannon. The site launches several different blog sites covering politics, entertainment, etc., all with the right-wing all with a right-wing angle. Bannon hires Milo Yiannopoulos as his technology journalist. The site intends to be the Huffington Post of the right, according to Bannon. Meet the Mercers. Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca's influence and involvement with politics has grown since 2011 after Citizens United verdict into 2010 removed any limits from corporations and individuals donating to politicians. Yeah, that was probably a mistake. Allegedly, Rebecca was the one who pushed Trump to hire Steve Bannon and his chief executive of the 2016 Trump campaign and Kellyanne Conway as campaign manager. And if there's any truth to that, then that's probably, it's like the Mercers are going to be like your conservative establishment people. And if they're pushing Bannon and Conway on Trump, that probably means that they were hoping to use both of them to try to steer Trump in establishment directions, which I don't think worked very well, fortunately. But yeah, it's like, people like this, they're conservative ink, and they're useless. They don't want what's best for the country. They want what's best for them. The establishment on both sides totally sucks ass. June 2014. Freelance writer and feminist Shafiqua? Maybe? I don't know. Hudson created hashtag your slip is showing after her and a number of black feminists noticed a suspicious hashtag End Father's Day was trending online from supposedly black progressive accounts. Their investigation led them to discover the black progressive accounts were fake and that the hashtag originated in 4chan troll groups with the intention of sowing discord in black online spaces, as well as creating a narrative that progressives are irrational and sensationalist to a mainstream audience. Well, progressives are irrational and sensationalist, and they've only become more so in the years since then. As far as 4chan trolling is, 4chan trolls a lot. I mean, and the mainstream media buys into it. Let's see, I can't remember now what all they've done, but they've done a bunch of shit. 4chan has done a lot of trolling that the mainstream media fucking buys right into. They fall for it every fucking time. Well, for one thing, I believe 4chan was where originated the idea that the OK sign, that's supposed to be like a W and a P, sort of white power, and it's like that's bullshit. It means okay, what it's always meant. It's not a white supremacy hand gesture or whatever, and but like I said, that was a fucking troll, and the mainstream media fell for it, and they have never, they've never accepted that they fell for it. They just keep on pushing these bullshit ideas. It's kind of funny on the one hand, but it's kind of not on the other, because it's like, man, 4chan comes up, and other places on the internet come up with these crazy fucking things to make the mainstream media look insane. And it's like, yeah, on the one hand it works, but on the other hand, it's like they keep on, it's like they keep doing it, and a bunch of people listen to them and believe that bullshit, which just makes life more difficult. August 2014, a concentrated online harassment campaign begins against female video game developer Zoe Quinn. Unless I'm mistaken, isn't she the bitch who got a game developer or something to commit suicide? I think I remember hearing about that. So fuck her. And Brianna Wu. Don't remember what. I know I've seen things about Brianna Wu as well. I guess whatever she did must not have been quite as bad because I don't remember it as clearly. As well as feminist media critic Anita Sarkeesian. Yeah, she sucks. Uh, you know, I mean, she would have you believe that what I can't remember his real name, Sargon of Akkad, was like, oh, he's a far right winger. It's like he's actually left of center. Maybe not by UK standards, because the UK, it's like all of Europe, they like Europe is really weird. They're like, oh, Marine Le Pen, she's the far right candidate in France, and it's like you actually look at her policies, and she's a fucking socialist. It's like the far right, as far as a lot of Western Europeans are concerned, are actually, decidedly left-wing people. They barely have conservatives in Western Europe. Now, Eastern Europe, on the other hand, you got some solid conservatives there. Viktor Orban, for instance, and like he's based as fuck. All right. Campaign takes place in Reddit, 4chan, Twitter under the hashtag Gamergate. And I don't really I didn't really pay attention to Gamergate, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly that what it's actually about was some kind of scandal where what was it female gamers or game developers or something were they were trading sexual favors for positive press or something. some something like that. Anyway, September 2014. Discussion sympathizing with Zoe Quinn from a mailing list of gaming journalists called Game Journo Pros is leaked and published on the Breitbart News website. Yiannopoulos and Gamergate supporters see the mailing list as evidence of collusion among journalists. 2015, Breitbart launches Breitbart Tech, which focuses on internet culture, tech, gaming, esports, all managed and edited by Milo Yiannopoulos. Sources. Oh, the sources. This is interesting. Salon.com, wouldn't trust them. Esquire, wouldn't trust them. Wall Street Journal, wouldn't trust them. New York Times, wouldn't trust them. U.S. News and World Reports, vital statistics, don't know for sure what that is. Slate.com, would not trust them either. Sources are a bunch of left-wing, bullshit artists, basically. All right, moving on. God damn, this thing is so fucking long. I'm getting a headache, man. I'm not sure I can handle it. I'm not sure. This was a mistake. This was a fucking mistake. Oh, you're going to have to take a break here, I guess. Shit. This thing just never ends.